Welcome back to Fantasy Standouts and Disappointments. I'm your host, Landon Rhodes, bringing you a Week 5 edition as we look at 3 of the top standouts in the NFL fantasy world, as well as 3 disappointments who you hopefully did not roster. Before we get into it, just want to say if you enjoy this content, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel for more great fantasy content that I plan to continue to bring you throughout the year. Without further ado, let's get into it. At the top here of our fantasy standouts is a familiar face. It's Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Josh Allen, 20 of 31, 424 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. That comes out to 36.16 Fanduel points for a 4.0 times value. Really solid stuff out of Josh Allen. And that game with the Steelers actually was kind of a blowout. We could have easily seen Allen put up even more and definitely push 500 yards passing. But the Bills, they let off the gas a little towards the end, weren't really trying to completely embarrass the Steelers over there in Buffalo. So towards the end, they kind of put it out of Allen's hands a little more, and it could have been even bigger. But no complaints if you had Allen at all, as he was still easily the top play at quarterback. Coming in at our number 2 spot in standouts, it's going to be the do-it-all Saint, Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, what do you really call him? He's tight end eligible on some fantasy sites and quarterback eligible as well. He kind of plays like a running back, but he's sort of like a cheat code plugging him in that tight end spot here in fantasy. 112 rushing yards for 3 touchdowns on the ground, as well as 22 passing yards for a touchdown. That comes out to 34.08 Fanduel points, 5.7 times value. So really crazy numbers from Taysom Hill at very low ownership on DFS sites. If you had the forethought to put Taysom Hill in your lineup, you were most likely looking at some massive winnings this weekend, and I give you all the credit in the world, as that is quite the confident play there. Coming in at number 3, it's going to be Austin Ekeler, running back for the Chargers as they took on the Browns this weekend. Ekeler heading into this weekend as a daily fantasy play after watching what the Falcons did to the Browns defense, slicing through them like butter with some third-string running backs. You put Austin Ekeler in that situation, he could really excel, and that's exactly what we saw. 16 carries, 173 yards, 33.9 Fanduel points for 3.8 times value. Now, the value wasn't really that great compared to some of these other guys, only because Ekeler is one of the more expensive running backs when it comes to daily fantasy sports. But all the same, we thought the situation was good for Ekeler, and it played out just that way. Really, really glad we got Ekeler in our lineups this week. Now that's it for the standouts. Now we got to look at the not so good, the disappointments here from NFL Week 5. Hope you did not play these guys. Coming in at number 1, it is Jaguars wide receiver Christian Kirk. Really looking strong to start the year, but as it went on, he has kind of faded a little bit. And this week against a Texans matchup, which you would think would be pretty decent for him, not exactly a stellar defense. They do have Stingley Jr., their first-round pick at corner, but outside of that, not a whole lot, and Kirk just not able to capitalize on that at all, as he had 1 catch for 11 yards. That is 1.6 Fanduel points, 0.2 times value. That alone is enough to sink your Fanduel lineup. Just straight up, you had Christian Kirk, your day was probably over early. Coming in at number 2 on our disappointments, it's going to be Rams running back Cam Akers, who has really just struggled this whole season so far. A lot of people were saying avoid him in fantasy drafts. Akers has made them look like geniuses so far this year. Here's the stats on Akers this week. 13 carries, 33 yards, 3.3 Fanduel points. That is 0.5 times value on Fanduel. Cam Akers just not getting it done. This hasn't been the only week that he hasn't gotten it done. But I'm going to be honest here. I think he could be a sneaky GPP tournament play coming up in future weeks. One of these weeks, he's probably bound to score a couple touchdowns, and he's going to come in at very low ownership. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I don't hate Akers going forward. He's just really had a very tough start to the year. Coming in at number 3, our final disappointment for this week, it's going to be Miami wide receiver Jalen Waddle. 3 receptions for 23 yards. 3.8 Fanduel points, 0.5 times value. He came into this one a little bit banged up. Don't know if that had something to do with it. Also, the Jets kind of had their way with the Dolphins as well, which was a shocking result in that one. But all the same, you would think the Dolphins would be throwing it the whole game trying to catch up. At that point, they had their third-string quarterback. What I'm trying to say is a whole lot of factors went into this poor performance from Waddle, but that Miami offense is looking more and more unpredictable by the week. Don't know who's going to have that big game. Even Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill has been on this negative list from me before as a disappointment just a couple weeks ago. So really unpredictable in Miami. I might avoid them moving forward. All right, that's going to do it for our Week 5 edition of Fantasy Standouts and Disappointments. I'm Landon Rhodes, looking forward to watching another weekend of NFL football and bringing you next week's edition. Until then, have a good one.